Every morning, my husband Tun kissed my forehead before leaving for work. For 7 years, that routine never changed. No matter how busy he was, no matter how tired he looked, he always paused at the bedroom door, smiled, and kissed my forehead before walking out. It was one of the many reasons I trusted him completely. Until the morning everything changed. I wasn't searching for secrets. I wasn't suspicious. I simply picked up his phone after he rushed out, intending to call him about the lunchbox he had forgotten on the kitchen counter. Then a notification flashed across the screen. A voice note. The sender's name was saved as Electrician. At first, I almost ignored it, but something about it felt strange. Curious, I pressed play. A woman's voice filled the room. Soft, familiar, dangerous. Tund, she still doesn't know, does she? My heart stopped. Before I could listen any further, the voice note suddenly disappeared. Deleted. The chat vanished from the screen as if it had never existed. And just like that, my peace disappeared too. I told myself it meant nothing. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe the voice note was innocent. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything. But then the lies began. Small lies at first. The kind people tell without thinking. The kind that often hide much bigger truths underneath. Tun said he was working late at the office. Yet when I drove past the building that evening, his usual parking space sat empty. No car, no sign of him. The next day, he told me he had traveled to Abuja for an important meeting. He even complained about the flight delays. But later that night, I checked our banking app and noticed his card had been used at a restaurant in Lagos. Not once, twice. My stomach tightened. When I asked him about it, he laughed it off and said a colleague must have borrowed the card. The explanation sounded rehearsed, too quick, too easy, and for the first time in our marriage, I wasn't sure whether to believe him. Every answer he gave seemed to create more questions. Every explanation opened another crack in the story, and with each passing day, I felt myself getting closer to a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to find. 3 days later, I saw her. Not in a photograph, not in a message, not as a mysterious voice hidden behind a phone screen. I saw her with my own eyes. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't looking over her shoulder or acting nervous. She walked confidently into a small cafe across the street from where I had parked. My heart nearly stopped when I saw who was already sitting inside. Tund, my husband. He looked relaxed, comfortable, like he had been waiting for her. I watched through the window as she smiled and took the seat beside him, not across from him, beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. They spoke for a few moments, then she reached for his hand, not casually, not awkwardly, comfortably, naturally, like someone who had done it 100 times before, like someone who belonged there. Tun didn't pull away. He didn't look surprised. He simply let her hold his hand while she smiled at him. And in that moment, every excuse I had given him shattered. Every explanation, every lie, every doubt. As I stood outside that cafe, staring through the glass, one terrifying question echoed through my mind. Who was this woman? And how long had she been part of my husband's life? That night, I searched through old storage boxes. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe a clue. Maybe proof that I was imagining everything. Hours later, buried beneath old documents and faded photo albums, I found it. A photograph from 8 years ago. The edges were worn, but the faces were still clear. My breath caught in my throat. Standing beside Tund, smiling at the camera, was the same woman. The same eyes, the same face, the same woman who had held my husband's hand in that cafe. But there was something even more unsettling. The photograph was taken a year before Tund and I met, which meant this wasn't new. Whatever connected them had started long before I entered his life. I hired no detective. I became one. For 6 days, I quietly followed every clue I could find. Receipts left in pockets, unfamiliar phone numbers, deleted messages that weren't deleted well enough, locations that didn't match the stories Tun told me. I wrote everything down, every date, every address, every lie. The deeper I dug, the more connected everything became. And no matter where I started, every road seemed to lead to the same place. A house on the outskirts of the city, not an office, not a hotel, a house. The property records showed it was registered under a name I had never heard before, a complete stranger. Yet somehow, that address kept appearing again and again. By the seventh day, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever secret Tund was hiding was waiting behind that door. When the front door opened, I stopped breathing. A little girl came running outside. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She laughed as she chased a ball across the front yard, completely unaware that someone was watching from across the street. For a moment, I simply stared. Then my heart dropped. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same eyes, the same smile, the same shape of face. Even the way she tilted her head reminded me of Tund. I felt my knees weaken. 100 explanations raced through my mind, but none of them made sense, because standing there, in front of that mysterious house, was a child who looked exactly like my husband. And suddenly, the secret I had been chasing no longer felt like a suspicion. It felt terrifyingly real. That night, I hid a recorder, not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to destroy my marriage, because I needed the truth. For days, I had been surviving on suspicions, half answers, and lies. I was tired of guessing, tired of wondering. So I placed the recorder where it wouldn't be noticed and waited. The hours crawled by. 10 o'clock, 11, then midnight arrived. And with it came the conversation that changed everything. A voice filled the recording, then another, calm, careful, as if they were discussing a secret that had been hidden for years. I listened in silence, my heart pounding harder with every word. Because after all the clues, all the questions, and all the lies, the truth had finally arrived. The woman wasn't his mistress. She was his first wife. The words from the recording played again in my mind, each one heavier than the last. There was no affair, no hidden romance, something far more complicated. The marriage between them had never been legally dissolved. No divorce papers, no official ending, just silence and time. Everything I believed about my life collapsed in layers, like a house built on sand finally giving way. My hands trembled as I replayed what I had heard, hoping I had misunderstood, hoping there was still a version of this story where I was not the outsider. But there wasn't. I wasn't the second chapter of his life. I was the secret chapter, the one written between lines no one was supposed to read. And for the first time, I understood the truth wasn't just about who he loved. It was about who I was allowed to be in his story. I waited, not for anger, not for tears, for certainty. The kind that doesn't shake when you speak it out loud, the kind that doesn't change with excuses. Then one evening, when the house was too quiet and even the air felt heavy, I placed everything on the table. Photographs from the past, the recordings I had hidden, the documents I had quietly collected over days that felt like years. I arranged them carefully, like evidence in a case that had already been decided. And I called Tund into the room. He walked in slowly, too slowly, like he already knew what was waiting for him. His eyes fell on the table, one item at a time, and I watched it happen. The moment his face changed, the calmness first, then confusion, then something deeper, something that looked like fear or regret, or both. 3 months later, I stood outside my new office. The air felt different now, lighter, like something heavy had finally been lifted off my chest. The marriage had ended, quietly, completely. No more lies to decode, no more stories that didn't add up, no more waiting for truth to reveal itself in fragments. Everything that once held me down had finally come undone, but something else began in its place. Freedom, not loud, not dramatic, just real. And for the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't questioning every word. I wasn't afraid of tomorrow, because tomorrow, for the first time, felt like mine. If you found a secret voice note on your partner's phone, would you listen to it or ignore it? Comment, listen, or ignore. If you've ever discovered a truth that changed your life, Comment rise and tell me what city you're watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next story.